morning. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to Connection, coming to you from Spirit and Truth Sanctuary. I realize that I have the orange sweater on today that I wore 2 weeks ago, and I normally would my rotation would normally be better than that, but I wore it for a special reason today because it is the only orange piece of clothing I own, and today we're going to talk about the Sacral Chakra, whose color is orange, so that's why I have on the sweater. Let's go to our morning blessing. Spirit of Truth, we give thanks today for our connection in this time of togetherness, for our sameness as well as our contrast, and for the light we reflect to one another and see in one another. We give thanks for the holy that holds us and for the humanity that always brings us back to the holy. We ask that our happiness, our peace, and our joy now be woven into the fabric of the world around us, and that it serve as nourishment to feed the heart of the collective. In the name and nature of the Christ, amen. And so it is. All right, our quotes. The first one today is from Albert Einstein. Imagination is everything. It is the preview of life's coming attractions. I like the way he said that. Next, from Bruce Garabrandt. Creativity doesn't wait for the perfect moment. It fashions its own perfect moments out of ordinary ones. Next, in my opinion, merely having offspring is not a creative experience, but what you do with them once they're here is. Do you encourage them to explore art, reading, music? Do you engage them in conversations about science, politics, spirituality, and current events? Do you teach them to think for themselves and to broaden their minds regularly? That, my friend, is the creative part. Meredith Navin. Next, it's a really short one by Emily Dickinson. Dwell in possibility. Next, the difficulty lies not so much in developing new ideas as in escaping from old ones. John Maynard Keynes. That was the last one, and that one's important, okay? We always talk about the fact that sometimes before you can learn new things or make new habits, you got to clear some stuff away and get the old stuff out. We're going to talk about that a little bit today, too. Okay, so last week we began this series. We talked about being safe in the storm, and we related that idea to our root chakra, and I told you that that was going to be the beginning of a series that we're doing an encore presentation of about all the chakras, which is just a way to explain the various energy centers we have in our body. If you don't want to use that word chakra, you don't have to. It's just a way to explain the different kinds of energy we all possess. So that root or base or first chakra that we talked about last week is all about our survival, our security, how safe we feel in the world and in our life. And just by way of review, it's also represented by the color red, which is why I wore a red shirt last week, and it's connected to the element of earth, and the statement it makes is, I exist. We talked about part of the reason for that being that's the very first chakra that is formed even when you're still in your mother's womb at the very beginning of your existence. So that's why the root chakra says, I exist. It is, and the root chakra is the foundation upon which all the other chakras rest. And therefore, it's extremely important that it be balanced and healthy, because if it's off, then the rest of the chakras will be as well. So I encouraged you last week to begin repeating this affirmation to yourself and believing it, getting it into your consciousness on a deep level. I am grounded, I am safe, I am divinely protected at all times. So I hope you all have been saying that this week. I know I have. Today, we're going to talk about our second chakra, which is called the Sacral Chakra, Sacral. And the physical place it's located is where our reproductive organs are. So it's no surprise that this chakra is all about our creativity. The word sacral is an adjective, and it means of, for, or relating to sacred rites or symbols. And I think that that's very meaningful because the act of creating is indeed sacred, as well as it being an attribute and an ability that was given to us by our divine creator. Remember, we are created by God, we are creative like God, and we are creating as God. So this chakra in particular is a sacred one and connects us to our divinity. Its color is orange, as I told you a few minutes ago. It's represented by the element of water, and that's pretty easy to remember because a common phrase people use to describe creativity is when we say our creativity is flowing. That's a way we describe creativity. Or people talk about creative juices. So it has a liquid quality to it. It flows through us and from us. In a previous sermon of his, my brother gave us some insight on how our thoughts are created, or rather where they are created. And he gave us 4 different levels of brain function that we as humans have, that we have evolved through over time. And in light of what I know about chakras, I found some very interesting parallels. He talked about in that sermon our lowest and most base form of brain function being what's called our reptilian brain, which we've discussed here on Tuesday mornings fairly recently. And as he was describing it, I couldn't help but notice that it sounded a lot like what we said in last week's teaching about the root chakra. They're both about survival and security, our physical safety, and both are susceptible to fear. If we only live on the level of our root chakra and or of our reptilian brain, most, if not all, our decisions will be made from fear, okay? But thankfully, most of us have evolved past that level, and although we do dip back down there from time to time when we feel threatened, hopefully we've learned how to move past and out of it as quickly as possible. Something I find fascinating is that as humans, our lowest chakra is actually the only one that's in the zone, as it were, of that reptilian brain. Because the very next chakra up, the sacral chakra, which we're talking about today, the way I like to think about it is when God that's creative. So immediately it pulls us up out of it. Let me tell you what I mean. When God created us in his image and gave us the ability to create as he does, that's all we needed to totally overcome and, as I said, lift ourselves up out of this reptilian, fear-based way of living and being. So from the second chakra on, it only goes up. So just quickly, I'll go through the levels so you'll understand a little bit more what I'm talking about. The next one that we'll talk about next week is the solar plexus, which is our center of power. Then our heart, which is, of course, where our love is centered. Then the throat, our ability to communicate. Then our third eye, or our intuition, our imagination, our ability to see beyond our physical sight alone. And finally, our crown chakra, which gives us access to higher states of consciousness and connects us to the universal mind. So there are 7 chakras. According to some disciplines of study, there are many more. But these are the main 7. And when my brother was talking about the reptilian brain and then the limbic and the neocortex and the frontal lobe, I thought it was interesting to think about how highly evolved we are as humans, because according to the chakra system, it's not like we're divided in half equally, as you might think would be the case logically. Half of us is not lower and the other half higher. It's not like the lower 3 all below the heart are all in that reptilian brain. And you have to wait till you pass the heart chakra to get into the higher mentality. No, like I said before, the very second one gives us the ability to create, or rather to recreate, which is something else he talked about in that sermon, which I want to talk about right now. He said that the word created, as it's used in the beginning of the book of Genesis, is bara, which actually means to recreate. So in light of our teaching today, our first chakra is about survival, which for the most part is based in fear. But then immediately above that, very quickly, we're given the ability to recreate that mentality and transform it into something higher and more evolved. So the actual translation of Genesis 1 should be, which says, in the beginning God created, should say, in a beginning God carved away, reshaped, and cleared out space. So then my brother went on to say, he expanded it by saying, in order for God to bring order into chaos, light into darkness, give design to the void, there had to be a clearing out of the old so that the new could be created. And we're going to talk about that process a little later as well. So then he quoted 2 Timothy 1:7, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. So just like that, we move from the root chakra to the sacral chakra and then on up. Then he continued, we know that we create our life with our thoughts, and that there are only two levels of consciousness we ever create those thoughts from, fear or love. When we are creating from fear, that is our reptilian brain at work. But it takes us using our higher brain functions to be able to do what Jesus desired when he said, let your kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. Or, said another way by my brother, let it come in manifestation as it is in my imagination. And that's the key, imagination. Imagination requires that higher brain function. Let me say it again. Let it being the kingdom of God, come in manifestation as it is in imagination. That's what the sacral chakra is all about, bringing what's in the invisible realm of your imagination into the physical world of manifestation, which is also known as the process of creation. Now, before we go on and talk about how we actually do this, I want to back up just a bit and make a distinction between reproduction and creation, because I don't think they're the same thing. When you reproduce, it's basically just a copy. But creation is an original. Like, in the world of art, you pay more for an original work of art than a reproduction or a copy of that first piece as it was created. Let's put it in another light. One of our quotes today said, merely having offspring, children, is not a creative experience. That's reproduction. That's just a biological process that happens as a result of a certain action taking place. The quote went on to explain that the creation of a child and his or her personality takes place later and depends on what the parent decides to expose the child to. So bara, this recreation, is still creation even though it's using material that was already there, because it's not merely reproducing, it is forming and shaping something totally new. So remember we talked about, I think it was either last week or the week before, that there's nothing completely new under the sun. But every time we recreate or reshape something and we put our imprint on it, it is new again. There was a movie in the late 80s called Parenthood, and in it, Keanu Reeves' character, who at the time was just a teenager, is talking to his girlfriend's mother in one of the scenes, and he says something to the effect of, you need a license to drive a car. You need a license to catch a fish. But they'll let any blankety blank blank be a father. Obviously, he was referring to his own father and his experience with him. His point was, just because you have the ability to reproduce doesn't guarantee you'll be a good parent. By the same token, just because we have the ability to create doesn't guarantee that all of our creations will necessarily be good ones. We need to learn how to be good parents to our creations. We've talked about this before. We're creating all the time, whether we're doing it consciously or not, because that's our nature. It's who we were born to be. It is literally in our DNA to create and to reproduce. But when we're not engaging our frontal lobe, then all we're doing is reproducing what's in our unconscious reptilian brain, which is filled with fear because all it wants and all it knows how to do is survive. And that's not creating. I was listening the other day to a girl talking about an experience she had while she was meditating. She was having quite an issue in her life with fear. So she decided she would go into meditation and try to talk to her fear as if it were a person. And what she learned was that her fear was her own creation. She kept asking it, "Why are you here?" And the only answer she got was, "I'm here because you created me." And then she asked it, "Why are you trying to hurt me?" And its reply was, "I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm just trying to survive." And I thought, wow, that's deep. Her fear was her own creation. It was like her child. She brought it to life. She gave birth to it. She manifested it from and with her imagination. And once it was created, it just did what all creations try to do: live, survive. And in order to survive, what has to happen? It has to be fed. It has to be given some kind of fuel. So she realized that her fear was not this evil external entity that was out to get her. It was just a creation of hers trying to survive. And it was completely up to her whether to keep feeding it, which would keep it alive, or to just let it starve to death. So the title of my teaching today is "You May Say I'm a Dreamer," which of course is a lyric from one of John Lennon's most famous songs, Imagine. And if we're going to be the creators of our own reality, if we're going to be good parents to our creations, then we've got to learn the proper use of our imagination so that we can create on that higher frontal lobe level rather than just reproducing more of actually what we see in front of us by reacting after the fact to the reality that's presented to us when we create unconsciously from our reptilian brain. I want to read now a part of a piece by Esther Hicks about the difference between facing reality that already is and creating or carving away the old, reshaping and clearing out space for a new reality. She says, once you have figured out that you are vibration first and foremost, and that you can, by choosing your thoughts, adjust the vibrational content of your being and thereby mold the energy of your being into vibrational alignment with that which you want to become, then you are a deliberate creator. When you demand that you get whatever it is you're looking for before you offer an emotional response, you are not creating. You are just observing and reacting. Then you've joined the ranks of millions of others trying to control the conditions so that you can feel better. But what you want to be doing instead of trying to control the conditions is to be creating the conditions, not reacting to them. So the question then becomes, how do you create a condition? If anyone ever asks you that, you should answer by saying, I have learned that I am healthier in my imagination than I am in my observation, because when I imagine, I can make it exactly the way I want it to be. And then they may say to you, oh, you're a dreamer. You're not a realist. To which you should reply, oh, I never face reality. I create it. I don't look at what is, if it's something I don't like, of course, and regurgitate or reproduce more of it. I look at it, which automatically causes me to launch a desire for something different, for something better. And then I feel my way into vibrational alignment with that different, better, higher version of reality. For example, when someone's rude to me, I want them to be nicer. When I'm rude to someone, I want to be nicer. When someone says I'm bad, I want them to understand I am good. When someone feels they are bad, I want them to understand that they are good. When I or someone else is sick, I want us to be well. I am confused. When I am confused, I want clarity. Are you beginning to see? And then I employ the greatest secret of all. I simply care more than anything else, more than life itself, because this is life itself, about how I feel. Okay, time out. Remember a while back when we had the teaching about me first, This is what she means here. Not to care most about how you feel in a selfish way, but in a way that uses your emotions and how you feel as indicators of what vibration it is you're existing on. Because when you really care about how you feel, you'll keep working until you feel good. And you can't create good things, you can't create a better version of reality for yourself unless you're in that creative place of feeling good. Okay, she goes on. And then I must be willing to work my thoughts around in whatever way I can until I find relief from the thoughts that don't feel good, by gradually replacing those thoughts with ones that make me feel increasingly better. Okay, remember, we're carving out, we're reshaping and clearing space for the new. That's what recreating is. I look at people whose behavior annoys me, and rather than asking them to change, this is key, I change my thoughts about them or about their behavior. Okay, time out here one more time. A few years ago, I read to you an article where someone had updated the 10 Commandments, and there are a couple of them that I think are good examples of what she's trying to say here. Here's the first one. The good person looks at people who are behaving badly as if they might be small children. That is with patience, charity, and an active search for mitigating circumstances. Though our society stresses the insult of being treated younger than one is, the good person knows it is the greatest privilege for anyone to look beyond the apparently strong yet nasty adult to the worried, anxious, and really rather nice child within. Okay, so you see, that's a positive use of your imagination that shifts your reality. When you decide to see someone who is behaving badly as their frightened inner, as that's just their inner frightened child acting out, it totally changes your perspective of the situation. They didn't change, their behavior didn't change, but your perspective did, and thus your reality. Here's another one. Confronted with a piece of stupidity or evil which they could never be guilty of, the good person doesn't fall into self-righteousness. Instead, they swiftly remember all of the many stupid and evil things they have at other points in time over different things been guilty of. They don't lose sight of how much they overall stand in need of the charity and forgiveness of others. Okay, so basically this is just suggesting you use the just like me trick. That whenever you see behavior in someone else that annoys you, you just remember all the times you've probably done things that have annoyed other people and you've needed their patience and forgiveness. And the last tactic for shifting your perspective rather than expecting or asking the other person to change their behavior in order to create a new reality is this. The good person is committed to searching for the funny side of people who might appear merely desperately irritating. They look at others like characters in a comedy rather than a tragedy. They know the greatest achievement is to be able to move from seeing someone as an idiot to considering them as the most privileged of beings, a lovable idiot. So let's go back to Esther Hicks now. She says, I eventually understood that when I was only responding to the vibrations others were sending out, rather than caring about and tending my own first and foremost, that all the power was theirs. And so I stopped giving my power away to them. I finally became aware that I didn't need them to understand me, to care about my needs, or to agree with me in order for me to feel better. And with that acknowledgement came my first and truest recognition of my own power to choose for myself my response to any person or any situation in any given moment. All right, so remember the story that we talked about last week about Viktor Frankl? He said, everything can be taken from man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. All right, so she continues. Instant freedom is achieved when you realize you don't need one person on earth to be even a little bit different in order for you to feel the way you want to feel. And okay, so I just want to stop here and say what a huge statement that was, because when so much of the time our feelings are dependent on our interactions with other people. But as she was saying, all that's doing is giving your power to decide how you're going to feel and how you're going to respond to them. If all you're doing is constantly react, if your feeling good is dependent on your interaction with someone else, you have put the power in their hands rather than keeping it in your own. And she says, and the other big freedom that comes with this discovery is the ability to love them anyway. When you do this, you return to the very nature of your being and you become the source energy in a physical body that you were born to be. Okay, so a different way to say what she's saying here is that when you become the Christ consciousness, when you can love the unlovable instead of letting them create your reality by reacting to their behavior, you have already created your own conditions for your reality, and their behavior just rolls off your back. Okay, so all that was about how to create your own individual reality. Now I want to talk about how we can collectively create a new reality for everyone. This is a piece by Dr. Bruce Lipton about being a dreamer and creating a new reality. He says, what we are experiencing now is an evolutionary upheaval moment where our human behavior needs to change in order for us to survive and thrive in the future. The most valid, truthful science on planet Earth is quantum physics. And quantum physics recognizes that consciousness is what is creating our life experience. We as a collective, through our minds, are manifesting our reality. You might ask, how can the thoughts in my mind be affecting the collective consciousness? And my answer is, because your thoughts are not just contained within your head. If I connected wires to your head and hook you up to an electroencephalograph machine, I can see your brain activity on a screen. But there's a new machine now called a magnetic encephalograph that can do the same thing, produce the same results, except there are no wires actually touching your body. The probe is placed a few inches away from your head and picks up the same information, which means that our brains are actually broadcasting our thoughts like radio waves. So the more individuals that share a common thought, the more power that thought vibration is given. And the power of that vibration determines the unfoldment of life on this planet. The more people that share a belief system, the more powerful it becomes. I think that's an interesting point. Doesn't matter whether the belief is right or wrong, good or bad. If enough people are sharing it, it will be what is manifested. So us putting our thoughts into a vision of a world that is healthy, that is a healthy, happy, garden-like existence is extremely important right now, because the more thoughts of this we have, the more this vibration gets amplified and is empowered to help facilitate its physical manifestation here on earth. All right, remember what we said earlier, on earth as it is in heaven, in manifestation as it is in our imagination. The way you think is not just a byproduct of something in your individual brain. It is an active agent engaging change and advancing the evolution of this planet and of all of humanity. So, when I read this next part, remember that it was 2 years ago when we were kind of at the height of the whole COVID situation. This is what he wrote. He said, "We must have new thoughts. The fearful thoughts running rampant at this time concerning the coronavirus are actually, quite literally, making it worse and harder to get rid of. I thought that all along, because the more attention we give things, the bigger they become. The fear is creating a much bigger problem for humanity than the virus is. It's time for us to change that, and we absolutely have the power to do so." And that's true of anything that we face as a collective, not just COVID, but anything we face as humanity that we amplify with our thoughts, because we give it more power, we make it bigger. And that's our decision. What most of us decide is what's going to be manifest. So, how do we exercise this power he's talking about? One way that I think is a really beautiful way is through corporate meditation. And I know many groups around the world have been doing this for the past several years. A lot of people were doing it before then, but especially when all of the virus stuff hit and the whole world was affected, people started paying more attention and creating more opportunities for people to have these corporate meditations, which is wonderful because it just proves this point. The more people that are thinking the same thing, have their thoughts, their energy, their focus, their attention going in the same direction at the same time, the stronger of a manifestation it will produce. So, I'm going to lead you, we're going to end today by I'm going to lead you in a group meditation. When we are not physically together in the same place, it makes it all the more important to be in the same place symbolically, to be in one mind and in one accord as much as we possibly can. So this is actually a meditation that I participated in several years ago on YouTube when it was happening live. And there were people online during the first time this meditation was given from all around the world. And it was led by our good friend Amanda Ellis. And she called this the Dove of Peace meditation, which I think is really appropriate for us since one of our main symbols here at Spirit and Truth Sanctuary is the dove of the Spirit in the middle that brings all the various religions together. So let's imagine now together the dove of peace. She begins by saying, we are being asked to hold peace in a time of great crisis. With your mind's eye, bring in now the dove of peace to maintain your equilibrium. Take a deep breath in and out. You can close your eyes if you'd like, and let's begin. We sit here today holding the energy of peace for ourselves, our communities, and our country. Allow your body to relax and let us together create a portal of peace, love, respect, and compassion, starting first with ourselves, from which all qualities can be transmitted. Welcoming in the dove of peace to this space, coming in on wings of love and grace, coming each time it's called to anyone who needs it, wherever they may be. The dove of peace flies anywhere, to places of noise, chaos, sickness, conflict, or fear. Nowhere is out of bounds for its healing light to flow in. The dove of peace is able to fly high above what is happening on the ground and to see the bigger picture, the far-off horizon where all is clear and whatever lies below has already been healed. The dove of peace exists in all time frames, in the past, in the present, and in the future, and is able to bring healing to all states of being, all dimensions, all times. At this present moment, we are graced with the dove's presence. Healing light radiates from it and illuminates where you are, your space, and yourself. Feel the dove's presence and light as it flows through you and around you, anointing you with purifying, cleansing energy. Flowing through your mind, clearing out old thought forms, worries, tension, and stress, bringing with it instead discernment, truth, non-judgment, clarity, and spiritual vision. Let its light flow through your eyes, enabling you to see the divine order in all, in those you love as well as in those you disagree with. Let its light flow through your ears, allowing you to hear the sounds of peace. Let its light flow through your throat, knowing when to stay silent and when to speak up. Allow your voice to be soft when others around you are harsh, to be kind when others are not for your voice, are not, for your voice is the highest self-expression, the highest vibration possible. Keep it at that highest vibrational possible at all times. Allow your voice to sing, to chant, and to proclaim peace. Allow the dove of peace to rest in your heart, finding there a haven and a home for stillness. In this stillness, hold space for the highest outcome, for positivity and for goodness. Let the dove of peace remove all fear, powerlessness, and stagnation from your heart and replace them with amplified intention and divine light to inspire, to heal, and to shine. Turn on your light so that others will be influenced by it, protected from harm, wrapped in only positive, loving energy, able to receive and transmit only positive, loving energy. Affirm, I am light, I am peace, I am love. Let this peaceful energy ripple out to all who you meet and all whom you touch. Hold peace. Manifest peace. Choose peace. Be peace. And I will add to that our Sacral Chakra affirmation for the week. I create peace. I am light. I am peace. I am love. I hold peace. I manifest peace. I choose peace. I be peace. I create peace. Amen. Thank you so much for sharing this time with me today. Join us tomorrow night for our continuing series, A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, and either in person or online. We will see everybody on Sunday. I love you. Be at peace. Goodbye.